My tea's gone cold, I'm wondering why I got out of bed at all. The morning news clouds up my window and I can't see it all. Even if I could, it'd all be great, but your picture on my wall, it reminds me that it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Dear Donald, I wrote you but you still ain't calling. I left my cell, my pager, and my home phone at the bottom. I sent 2 letters back in autumn. You must not have got them. But anyway, what's up, man? How's this war with Iran going? I love you, man, I swear I do. I voted twice, wore the hat, but now you're bombing Tehran. Cause Bibi Netanyahu snapped his fingers like that. You said America first, now we're dying for Israel's benefit. American treasure burning up, American lives getting spent. Lindsey Graham whispering in your ear, Mark Levin screaming on the air, Laura Loomer tweeting, hit him harder, got you dancing like you don't care. I even got your face tattooed right across my chest, but every time I see the news I'm feeling more and more depressed. P.S. We should be together, MAGA forever, you and me.
Welcome to the Leo Zagami Show, a new edition celebrating 20 years of Illuminati Confessions. And today we are talking about something that might upset some people, but my intention is to also clarify certain things which happened in my past, which I wrote about, which my wife wrote about. So it's going to definitely be a very interesting episode. So please share it, put like. We have been for many years victims of the censorship, actually for decades victims of the censorship. So my intention here is to explain that behind the suicide of David Wilcock, there is overall the New Age movement and their cultish beliefs. There is, of course, a problem with mental health, but it seems that in that context, that problem is actually amplified. So here we are. Let's thank, first of all, our sponsors, and then we will start with our show. Thank you, Larry Frascella. Thank you, Daniel Estes. Thank you also to all those people who have purchased my books. I have actually a citation that I want to take from my wife's book, Confessions of an Illuminati Princess, Volume 2. But before all this, I want to also discuss my own involvement with David Wilcock, which I had written about in Volume 2 of my Confessions. This book is a book where I also explain my connection with Benjamin Fulford, how I eventually discovered that Benjamin Fulford was an agent for the Chinese Freemasons, the Hongmen, and by his own admission, I'm saying this is not like any speculation I'm making. And like I said, I've written about David Wilcock back then, and so I want to first of all share with you what I wrote, because at the time I had introduced David Wilcock to Benjamin Fulford. And then all this was connected to a court case that would be eventually abandoned by this former intelligence operative. This is the case that David Wilcock and then Benjamin Fulford will debate for a long time. It was a case which involved Daniele Dal Bosco, the Office of International Treasury, and the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, all kinds of important people. And unfortunately, I was also cited various times in this case because they had apparently the whole case was linked to me through the fact that Daniele Dal Bosco, who was an old friend of mine involved in the past in the Monte Carlo Lodge, eventually was given these, we call them financial instruments. So here we are today discussing all this, but first of all, I need a pair of glasses. So I'm going to go and get quickly a pair of glasses so I can open up these books and then I can give you this citation. Okay, so first of all, let me make a summary a little bit of the situation and what we will be discussing today. Because we saw in the past also a documentary was made on these people, David Wilcock, Corey Good, their, all the things they were associated with. And then we saw Corey Good doing a video after the death of his friend David Wilcock, saying that he was blaming the mental health impact of cyber stalkers and all that. But in reality, the problem is the New Age movement. To me, Gaia TV, which also then ended up having a problem with both David Wilcock and this Corey Good, who claimed he was in some kind of space program and all that, but it was all rubbish. It was all made up. To me, even Gaia is the ultimate grifter organization. For me, this is really, now that David Wilcock has passed, his passing is being painted by some as a conspiracy of sorts. His name was even included erroneously amongst the scientists that keep on disappearing. There was, in fact, just the other day, the inclusion of David Wilcock amongst this list for a few hours. Then the same News Nation took it off. Check this out.
Well, the twists just keep coming. 2 more people are linked to the mysterious web of dead or missing American scientists and researchers, bringing the total number to 13. The FBI is now reviewing the death of NASA nuclear engineer Joshua LeBlanc, who was killed in a fiery car crash last July after he went missing without his phone and wallet. Also under review and newer scrutiny tonight is the death of David Wilcock, a paranormal UFO researcher and writer whose death was ruled a suicide.
And like I said, it is a suicide.
Learning that several scientists from China have also turned up dead too.
But it doesn't have, I mean, in this situation that I'm going to be describing you today, David Wilcock in the end was the victim of this New Age cultish milieu he belonged to. And News Nation, in fact, today took off his image from the hypothetical victims of this conspiracy that sees the disappearance of various scientists, even of a prominent, I think it was a general and so on, all connected, of course, to the UFO disclosure.
the human brain will always be drawn to conspiracy theories. For starters, they're interesting, but more important...
So now they're back down to 11. You see how things evolve. Now he's out of the
They
picture.
provide people with theories for anomalous events in a universe that can sometimes be terrifyingly random. So it's no surprise that many people are looking for a grand unified theory behind the case of the missing NASA scientists. But there's also growing skepticism about whether this particular series of unfortunate events is tied together in some malevolent plot. Clearly, some of the missing disappeared under unusual circumstances, but others appear to be run-of-the-mill tragedies. Heartbreaking, but perhaps not sinister. And as any seasoned detective will tell you, red herrings can confuse and unravel even the most thorough investigations.
That's a bit like wanting to apologize for claiming 2 days ago that David Wilcock was part of this list, but of course. So going back to what happened, I think that Wilcock realized that his entire history of lying had caught up with him. And his entire history of lying included also what he did back in 2010, after I introduced him to Benjamin Fulford. So first of all, I want to read you this introduction to the subject from my wife's book, Confessions of an Illuminati Princess, Volume 2, written in the summer of 2019 and published soon after. This is something that was written back then after we first arrived here in the United States in the month of May, at the end of the month of May of 2019. And these are the words of my wife, not mine, okay? So, quote, "It was around this time that Wilcock," so I want to actually go back, so from the beginning of this whole thing. So, okay. The following evening, here we are, we just arrived to the United States. We were here in Palm Springs, and we go to Contact in the Desert, which takes place every year here in nearby Rancho Mirage, and it's basically, so it's basically in the proximity. So we were invited. The following evening, went the same way. We dolled up and showed up at 6 o'clock. Here, this is basically a description of our arrival at Contact in the Desert. And so this is, I think, a very clear testimony of the events from Christie. The following evening went the same way. We dolled up and showed up at 6 p.m., but this time John was there to greet us and introduce us to even more people. Palm trees strewn with white lights, and the full desert moon was the backdrop for the night full of gossip and laughter about all the different people attending Contact in the Desert. This is the one of the number one UFO events that takes place nearby every year. And one person that we talked about gleefully was David Wilcock, who apparently was up in his hotel room hiding. We heard that he was paid a large amount of money to speak at the event. And gossip behind the scenes claimed that he didn't allow questions from the audience, and he only appeared for his scheduled talk with his bodyguards, refusing to participate in the mandatory meet and greet every evening because he feared for his safety. Leo exploded into laughter when this was revealed to him, and vowed to expose him on his YouTube channel. I repeat, this is the words of my wife. And I continue the words of Christie Zegami. The only time, page 92, the only time Leo ever spoke with David Wilcock was back in 2010, when he called Leo on Skype asking for Benjamin Fulford's contact information. At the time, Leo was still writing books with Benjamin, and so wanting to be helpful, he gave him Fulford's phone number. Leo and Fulford broke their collaboration shortly afterwards. When Benjamin began accusing Leo of trying to murder him during and after his short visit to Rome, which I write about in Volume 1 of my Confessions. Of course, that was completely ridiculous. And Leo spent a small amount of time defending the accusations until he finally broke ties with Fulford and exposed him for all the lies and corruption that had surfaced before, during, and after his heavy assault on Leo's character. It was around that time that Wilcock joined forces with Fulford's circus and began to attack Leo as well. Leo barely knew the guy, except for that one phone call, where he wanted a favor, but it seems that the way these people operate, they use you and toss you aside when they are finished. Money-hungry charlatans, ready to take the hard-earned money of people who are only searching for answers. It was scandalous, so joking about that fool, meaning David Wilcock, the late David Wilcock, was the highlight of the evening, and I sure as heck made certain that I had enough battery in my camera just in case a chance encounter between Leo and David occurred. And this is the end of my wife's testimony on the matter. If you're interested, you can read it in Confessions of an Illuminati Princess, Volume 2. Let's go to my book, Volume 2 of my Confessions. But first of all, let's also briefly see this trailer of the documentary Dark Alliance that denounces these people, because Wilcock has long claimed he was the reincarnation of the famous sleeping prophet Edgar Casey. So Casey's son and grandson tested him using questions Casey himself had prepared for future claimants. Wilcock allegedly failed them all. The entire space program, SSP, and 20 and back programs with Corey Goode and supported by Project Camelot, Kerry Cassidy, that were promoted heavily via Gaia TV and their cosmic disclosure between 2015 and 2018, were all found in a lawsuit in court to be made up by Corey Goode. Wilcock and Cassidy presented them as real whistleblower testimony, unfortunately. But the court found untrue that there was an alien conspiracy cover-up, that the Earth is a 500,000-year-old battleground in an ET war, that these blue avians extraterrestrials were an invention. It was absolutely insane. Like I said, they made a documentary. This is a brief clip from it.
Gaia and the cyberstalkers are the dark forces.
All right, so my clients are not the dark forces?
No.
But I would say to those of you that are supporting him and helping him to defend himself, what's he defending himself from? Who is the dark side? Because see, if you really look at it and dissect it, no one is suing Corey. He's the one suing everybody. Nobody's suing him. Who is the dark force? Who is the cabal?
Yeah, the cabal.
You know, he said things like, I couldn't believe, to be honest with you. He was talking about 20 and back and bases on Mars and the moon and all this. Although none of that was in his book. I do believe that there was a information contamination.
I was contacted by Roger Ramsell or Roger Richards, who at the time was Corey Good's business partner, manager, something to that effect. I believe he contacted me in about March 2017. I think if you look up sensational in the dictionary, you'll probably find David Wilcock's face in there. Because it is kind of like a cult tactics, cult-like behaviors that are going on around that group.
So I called Corey and I said, Corey, I'm calling on behalf of David. How much of a percentage is David going to get? Corey said to me, I'm not giving David a percentage.
Corey literally called himself the Enoch of our modern times, and David claims to have all these insiders, and they prop themselves up to be these larger-than-life personalities.
Hundreds of people have been on Gaia, having different TV shows.
Now, like I said, Gaia for me is a bunch of really dishonest people. I actually exposed one of them also in volume 10 of my Confessions. They really are, I mean, taking advantage of the credibility that some of these people have gained through the internet with very questionable documentaries, shows. I was approached by one of their producers, a Contact in the Desert, and then I discovered the guy was linked to a certain Freemason, which I have exposed in volume 10. I mean, a Freemason who was also involved in the past with the Islamic world, all kinds of things. What I noticed when I was there the first time at Contact in the Desert, and like my wife said, this David Wilcock didn't even have the courage to show up in front of me because he of course didn't want to be exposed in any way, shape, or form. There was a lot of talk about the white hats are taking up the black hats. The Q drops became part of his narrative. So he was completely brainwashed, also like many New Agers, by the QAnon psyop, which, as you know, I've exposed in volume 7 of my Confessions in a very detailed way, and I suggest you all read. David Wilcock, back in 1999, he had pushed the Y2K thing, saying that there will be a rapture. Then he pushed the 2012 narrative, end of the world ascension. In the last few years, he was even selling a way of ascending, which is insane if you think about it. You can't sell somebody's ascension. What are you saying? He claimed, David Wilcock, there will be mass arrest by Memorial Day 2025. Nothing happened. These people, like, you know, it's just like, there will be mass arrest, Trump, the white hats, and all this BS. Guys, as you know, I've been in the past a Trump supporter, but I'm also a realistic person. I prefer reality than fiction. Remember that.
And different personalities. Have any of them turned around and sued Gaia? Nobody but Corey Good.
David is going to lead a conversation. Raise our class.
That guy you saw is Jimmy Church. Jimmy Church is also somebody described in my wife's book, which is also a guy who in the past I've participated to his shows, and who also demonstrated to be in the end somebody who was not really there to expose the truth, but rather to make money, like all these people from this New Age movement. They monetize every possible sensationalist claim. They do fundraisers, they ask for donations, and they are always wrong about what they are pushing, usually, you know. But they push their goals farther and farther. And guys, I can prove what I wrote in volume 2, which was published 11 years ago, actually 10 years ago, sorry, came to fruition. In this book, I actually say that in 2020, there will be a pandemic and you will be all locked up. This is what it means to be correct about my assertions. Correct and also honest. When I get it wrong about Trump, I told you a few months ago, when I started to perceive that Trump was doing things, especially in regards to the Epstein files. I wrote a whole book here to expose the Epstein files. Now the government watchdog, by the way, just the other day, is investigating the DOJ's release of the Epstein files. And I hope that something will eventually happen, though Trump is already trying to distract everybody by continuing the war and canceling the peace process. In any case, this endless stream of whistleblowers that Cassidy did included also myself when I was, interviewed Project Camelot. So I also saw how these people operate very closely. And I saw that Cassidy at one point accused me of being a CIA agent with no proof whatsoever. Now, they promoted all this stuff through Gaia, through Ancient Aliens. I never had the possibility to go on Gaia. I never had the possibility to go on Ancient Aliens because Leo Zagami is a real whistleblower. And when this whole court case came through with this bizarre claim, guys, it was pretty relevant at the time. I show you an article. This is from Courthouse News Service, December 5, 2011. An American expatriate in Bulgaria claims the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the Office of International Treasury Control, and the Italian government conspired with a host of others to steal more than 1.1 trillion. The 101-page federal complaint involves a range of entities common to conspiracy theories, including the Vatican, Illuminati, the Masons, the Theatrical Commission. And in this article, then you have the Dragon family. You remember the famous assets of the Dragon family. These two Japanese had actually been arrested in Italy, and they had been confiscated a number of financial instruments, which included the U.S. Federal Reserve notes worth $124.5 billion. I had intervened myself to see what was that all about. I had just been working for Benjamin Fulford for a while. In that moment, I was about to start with him also a literary project which brought me to publish several books in Japan. I started with a couple of books which I actually co-wrote with him. Here, in fact, you can see a month after a Japanese man were detained, the ones that were detained in Italy with all these financial instruments, a man named Leo Zagami, a self-described 33-degree Freemason, who as of April 2008 had reportedly claimed to be a leader. Zagami claimed to be a representative of the Vatican, Illuminati, and other European secret societies, and had been looking to make contact with certain Asian secret society, which was basically the ones which Benjamin Fulford was working with. This is important, this case, because then we're going to see how it links to David Wilcock. But let's go back to the Dark Alliance clip.
Bill William Hopkins.
Love you, Bill.
Told me, I forget the name of the company that created the Skynet in the Terminator films. He said he started Cyberdyne years before the Terminator film came out.
Let's go back to the beginning. I first met Corey and David. Well, let me back up a little bit from there. So larger-than-life personalities.
Definitely larger-than-life personalities, but also fraudulent personalities. This guy, Jay Wedner, who also seemed to, he's like a sort of a modern-day Indiana Jones of the esoteric world. He's a filmmaker. He's a renewed scholar of alchemy, Hermetic tradition, sacred geometry. He was the director of The Last Avatar, deep dive documentary on Kubrick's Hidden Codes. And he was actually somebody who used to work for Gaia. even Wired calls him an authority on these topics. And Jay Weidner actually gave an interview recently with my friend Christian Harris, which seems to be interesting because it touches on the fraudulent ways of David Wilcock. Here we are. This is, of course, my friend Christian Harris, who, like I said, interviewed one of the protagonists of this whole, how we can call it. I mean, it is definitely quite scandalous.
Jesus. He didn't help me a bit. So all I can say is, suck it, Jesus. This award is my God now.
I'm thankful to the Oscar gods.
The other names of the gentlemen are all gods as far as a category concerned.
When you get this little golden statue, you become a star. In the Egyptian culture, they also had a little statue that represented the god Ptah.
Y'all, they say that David Wilcock, the man from Ancient Aliens, passed away, man. And this right here hit me because I used to watch this man all the time. Every Sunday he would go live and do his weekly show. But something's not adding up. I've been noticing like this David Wilcock that I haven't seen recently looks very different from the Ancient Aliens David Wilcock. Now, it's not too much of a difference, but if you look closely, you can clearly see that there is a difference between those two. Look at the bridge of the eyebrows right over here. The eyes are different. The nose, like you see how this one's flatter and wider and this one's more pointier and longer? Look at it. The mouths are different. His teeth is out. Look at this. You know what I'm saying? If you listen to Ancient Aliens David Wilcock, there's not a lot of pausing and ums in his life. But this David Wilcock over here, there's a lot of pausing, there's a lot of ums and a lot of uncertainties in his life. Now, y'all know how I do with the breakdowns, right? How I do with the numbers and then the wordplay, okay? So, something's not adding up. Let's pay attention. First of all, David Wilcock allegedly took his life on a Monday, Moon Day. And the person who confirmed this was Anna Pauline.
This is the kind of conspiracy crazies that want to find a conspiracy in everything. And of course, we know that David Wilcock admitted that he was worried because of all these scientists. We know that is actually something he said. But then he ended up his own life, guys. He wasn't killed. There wasn't anybody else involved. He ended up his own life.
I'm excited to be here. You know, every day that I have on earth is a gift and a blessing, and I'm very grateful for that because, frankly, people are disappearing. Scientists are going missing. Now they're saying they're going to investigate this. The president himself is saying they're going to look into this and see if anything's going on. It's a little bit scary. I got to say, it's a little bit scary, but you guys knew that I might still show up even though it was last minute and I've had a really rough week. Like, you know, that's kind of like every week, but somehow we keep on making it through all of this.
He had actually made some weird posts which worried some people close to him prior to this show. The problem with the New Age movement, guys, is that they don't have a God. They might claim, like David did in his last show, Christ consciousness and all that. But guys, they have no God. And it's this lack of God that eventually brings these people, like in the case of David Wilcock, to take their own life. It's sad, but has nothing to do with a conspiracy of immense proportions to silence people who were involved with UFOs in the scientific world. Because, honestly, David Wilcock was not really a scientist, guys. But apparently, they claim he was. They actually claim, you know, he's a paranormal writer, claim he was because for a period of time, he actually collaborated with a company, which in reality, when you go and see, which what this company did, it was a Ponzi scheme. So let me make it very clear. They want to include the death of David Wilcock with all these other people, claiming that he was somehow involved with the Stavati Aerospace. And it's very interesting because just today they changed this post. The Wikipedia was changed. Here it says, he had become director of advanced technology of Stavati Aerospace. In the prior Wikipedia version, it was written that Stavati Aerospace was discovered to be a Ponzi scheme, a fraudulent organization. In fact, if we go on Stavati Aerospace, we can still see Stavati Aerospace claims regarding its business operations have been repeatedly raised by the media throughout its existence, and the company has been involved in several legal disputes. Because this company is apparently not legitimate in any way. And so the involvement of David Wilcock was mostly because David Wilcock was, of course, a public figure that could have, helped their project, especially if you put him as director of advanced technology. But Stavati Aerospace is not really an honest company. And so it's a little bit weird now that they are cleaning up after David Wilcock's death, this side of things. Because Stavati Aerospace is actually a Ponzi scheme. But let's go back to the interview made by Christian Harris.
Luna, like the moon, has another name for the moon is Luna. Moon day, Luna. David Wilcock was 53 years old. 5 plus 3 gives you 8. What day did David Wilcock commit suicide? April 20th. 420, which is right. 4 times 2 is 8. 5 plus 3 is 8. All right, now let's continue. Wilcock concluded his 3.5-hour stream by expressing his gratitude for his viewers and acknowledging his appreciation for them. 3.5, that's 3.5. 3.5, right over here. Which 3.5 gives you 8 again. Now, the reason why that's relevant is because when you take an 8 and you split it down in half, you get...
This guy, typical exponent of, the real crazies. I mean, we are surrounded by people like that who will see a conspiracy in everything. When I write books about real conspiracies, and when I get then at that point censored from even the alternative media, because of course, when you're talking the truth, that's another thing. Going back to because somebody was saying every space program is a Ponzi scheme. Watch here. Stavati Aerospace faces allegation of operating a fraudulent Ponzi scheme with lawsuits from investors alleging racketeering, fraud, and breach of contract. A 2023 lawsuit specifically accused the firm of failing to repay a $1 million investment and alleged a partner of seeking funds for non-existing projects. So that's what David Wilcock was participating with as a director of advanced technology.
Threes, right? 33. Okay, let's continue. Remember that.
This is probably the hardest video I've ever had to do. As many of you know, or have learned, yesterday on 4/20, David Wilcock took his own life. We are devastated and shocked. I really love David. He was a good friend. He was there with me through a lot of horrible things. We were there for each other. We were there with each other through a lot of awesome things. We had many, many laughs, many extremely deep conversations. And I'll always remember how kind he was. He never hurt anyone. He never denigrated, talked down to anyone. He treated everyone well. And he brought such a huge...
He treated everyone well apart from Leo Zagami, because the only interaction I had with him, it was a complete failure. What happened later between me and him demonstrated he was not a good human being, dear Corey, because I introduced him to Benjamin Fulford, and then he badmouthed me together with Benjamin Fulford.
Body of knowledge and information to this world. I hope people remember him and respect him for that. Everyone knows the last, since 2018, things have just really been crazy for both David and I. We have gone through an incredible amount of legal issues and cyber stalking. We've received death threats, numerous death threats on a yearly basis. There are groups of people that have gone out of their ways to completely destroy us. I think a lot of these people would have preferred to see me as the person who took their own life, but it was David.
I don't know. Pretty crazy. Whew! All right. We're back. We're back. It's all going to be good. You guys are okay. I'm okay. I'm safe. We're going to make it through this. You guys really want to talk about food today. But yeah, I mean, I get it. You hear that I've got health problems, and you hear that I've got, like, I'm up every couple of hours at night peeing, and, you know, and the pee smells like fruit, and I got the dry skin, I got the cracked heels, I've got the, you know, all the basic symptoms of what you would call type 1 prediabetes. I don't, thankfully, have blurry vision. I have a little bit of tingling in my hands, too, so it's scary. I mean, I think if I got a diagnosis, that's what they would say. But again, it is believed that this can be reversed by diet. And I noticed yesterday that my pee smelled a lot less fruity when I started to follow these things and not eat the salad and have the chicken instead. So that's what I'm really hoping for, guys. I want to get through this because it's been very difficult. I've had very low energy, very low motivation. That's why a lot of times I'm not even sure if I'm going to do a show because I'm tired, stressed out. It's a whole thing. It's called aging, David, says Jabo Philippe. No, this is not aging. It's something very different. Parasites, Susan Blueberry, that could very well be. I mean, one of the things I'm looking at is the possibility that my pancreas is under attack from the hantavirus.
Well, let me remind those who are following us today that David Wilcock, the late David Wilcock, engaged in really bizarre rituals. Specifically, there was one that I was a little bit, I mean, I remember, I think it was Ryan Gable told me about it. He used to bath in his own urine as part of a perpetrated attempt to contact spiritual entities like the Archangel Michael. Now, no, while, I mean, Wilcock has stated, he had stated this telepathic contact with aliens and spiritual beings, even claiming that Ra was the Archangel Michael. So, I mean, his work focused on the law of one, the ancient aliens, and his belief in that he was a reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. But then there was this really weird things that went on.
From the mice that we have here, the infestation from mice, I'm going to come back in an hour and maybe there will be a show. Oh my God. Okay. Hear about the Illuminati. If you watch the movie Eyes Wide Shut, you hear about something called the Saturn cult and the Festival of Saturnalia. Why? Because these people trace themselves back to the progenitors who had originally settled on Saturn. So if you look in Eyes Wide Shut when they're all wearing the masks, they do this dance where they go around in a circle, and that emulates the rings of Saturn orbiting. Because they trace themselves as the descendants of Saturn, and they...
Wow. Somebody is asking me in the chat, why are we talking about David Wilcock? Because he just passed away recently, and because I had to do with him in the past, and in fact I wrote about him. My wife wrote about him. And he was not the nicest person with us, but it's not about wanting to, just attack him now he's dead. It's about my experience with somebody who, in a way, my wife said I shouldn't feel sorry for him, but, he's a victim of this new age cultish beliefs that surrounded him. So, of course, a lot went on also with that Corey guy and things, of course, probably with that Corey Good co-hosted also this program on Gaia. But guys, like I said earlier, if you have no God and the New Age movement doesn't have any God, you can risk something like this. On April 18, Wilcock expressed doubt that he will be live streaming a planned YouTube video, and that he had some very intense stuff going on. He eventually did that, that video, but then he died at his residence on April 20 at the age of 53 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And that's very sad. That's very sad.
Believe that they're different from the rest of us, that they have extraterrestrial DNA that made them the gods. And that kind of is segueing into the next part of our talk. So there were a very small number of survivors when the moon was blown up, and they got out with only, apparently the story is, the moon was so badly hit that only a few of their damaged spacecraft got out, and their civilization on Earth was almost completely wiped out. So just a small number of them made it, and they crash landed on Earth. And they then interbred with humans, which they were specifically warned not to do. And this created what we call, in the Book of Enoch, the fallen angels. Their offspring, their children most likely, the hybrids of their own form, which was about 36 feet tall, and native people on Earth, became these 12 to 13 foot tall, red-headed, white-skinned humans. And white skin was not normal for the Earth. And this is preserved in a book that the Vatican did not want you to read, that wasn't even found until the 1800s, but it's very old. It's as old as the book of Genesis, called the Book of Enoch. It's a very, very important text. And I'm going to be doing a lot more about this as I go on, probably writing it into my books. The Scottish explorer James Bruce discovered several copies of it in Ethiopia in 1773.
Here is, of course, referring to the Book of Enoch. But before going back to the Book of Enoch, let me show you what I wrote in Volume 2 in regards to what happened after I introduced him to Benjamin Fulford. And at that point, Benjamin Fulford, through Benjamin Fulford, then he became acquainted with Neil Keenan. Neil Keenan, who was involved with these bonds which were stolen from, he then claimed they were stolen. It's, Neil Keenan, who's no longer alive, I think he died like 5 or 6 years ago, is a loose cannon of both the NSA and the Chinese Freemasons. Just like his colleague, right here, David Wilcock, who introduced Keenan with the aid of Fulford to a large audience until the event chronicle finally exposed them all. However, at the time, a series of actions were indeed taken by Dal Bosco to prevent any fraudulent use of such bonds in the future. But Keenan became immediately upset and sent me this email. So then there was actually this Keenan guy who said that he was in contact with Colonel Alexander for the NSA, and he kind of even, I think he threatened me basically. He said, I have forwarded this to you for one reason and one reason only. You told Mr. Fulford that is being fed misinformation. Please read and you will see Daniele is feeding you lies and you like me refuse. I mean, all kinds of things. And then, of course, like I said, Wilcock was involved with Fulford in promoting this whole thing that these financial instruments will save the future of the world. Just listen to this.
Ben was the Asia Pacific bureau chief for Forbes magazine.
Benjamin Fulford is another guy who has completely lost the plot, like Eric Cassidy and many others in this new age cultish setup, where every now and then there is people who completely lose the plot, but because of their environment, they are able to continue in their insanity. And this is really, I think, the sad element here also in regards to the suicide of David Wilcock. Because it's, the thing is, based on his public works and based on everything he did, he was a victim of New Age cultish beliefs, because he was trapped by the very alternative, often extreme belief system he himself popularized. The psychological and social isolation caused by these extreme beliefs, the pressure of maintaining a cult following based on unfulfilled prophecies that constantly don't fulfill, and then the personal, financial, and mental health struggles that eventually, sadly, culminated in his reported suicide at age 53. The chosen one narrative. Wilcock believed he was the reincarnation of the famous psychic Edgar Cayce. He created this guru dynamic where his followers view him as a spiritual authority. When he talked with me that time on Skype, he couldn't stop telling me how great he was. And I was like, who cares? Then there was that whole 12,012 ascension thing. Like many New Age influencers, Wilcock predicted shift, ascension, harvest, that, of course, failed to materialize. I simply said 2012 is the beginning of a transformation for mankind. These people were saying it was the ultimate transformation, that we will have seen in one day the whole world change. And then there is the financial and emotional cost. In his final days, Wilcock he was struggling with overwhelming financial debt, aside from his depression. And for a guru who promotes the idea that one can manifest their own reality, this gap between promise and reality, can be mentally and emotionally crushing. In his final month, Wilcock's post of people disappearing and warned his followers that he was being threatened or harassed, claiming that something was about to happen to him, but something was always about to happen to him. That's why he, like my wife wrote in her book, he was so paranoid that he'd even come and talk to us when we were at contact in the desert. He was hiding in his room with his security service, his security detail.
He has a long history of professional, credentialed academic journalism.
So here, of course, is one bullshitter introducing the other. One drifter, one introducing the other.
And as you can find out from many other interviews that he's done, some of which are on my site, he got involved into a world of intrigue when he started to trace where the money was going from the Japanese economy. He realized the economic stimulus that could be generated to the world was not being used for anything that was positive, and it seemed like a lot of money was disappearing. And that investigative trail actually led to him getting death threats and getting drawn into an Asian secret society as a counterbalance against the old world order guys who also...
Well, the reality is that Benjamin Fulford got initiated by the Hongmen, like I described and showed also the documents here in volume 2. And like I said in volume 2 of my Confessions, and this was really a prophecy of mine in a way, wake up, my friends. Not everything that glitters is gold on the web. That is for sure. And the insane show set up by Fulford and his partners in the media, which included at one point, and I'm quoting one book here, guys, a series of interviews with the renewed American researcher David Wilcock, was just a pathetic display of pure disinformation. I still remember when poor Wilcock got carried away with Fulford's rubbish, and he even began to cry live on the radio like a little girl. This happened when they where both spoke of confiscating bonds in Chiasco and supposed threats to their life. End of quote, from volume 2 of my Confessions.
Silence him and bribe him by offering him, I forget, Ben, was it an ambassadorship they wanted to give you or something like that?
Well, they offered me at one point the job of finance minister of
Japan. Right.
They also, believe it or not, offered me General Electric and General Motors.
Really?
Well, yeah.
Like you would be the CEO or something?
Yeah, and I guess the chief shareholder.
Okay.
The problem, of course, is I had to go along with their plan to kill 4 billion people. It's a classic sell your soul to the devil situation.
Right. They just need to lighten the load and get rid of some surplus. That's how they like to talk about it.
Well, they want to save the environment and get rid of the useless eaters, yeah?
Exactly. So, look, man, I've been on the internet since 1996. I've had my own public presence since 1998. And I watched you ever since you came out. And I noticed right off the bat, I believe you emerged in like 2007. Was that correct? Something like that?
Yeah, it must have been around that time.
Yeah.
Because I'd been researching a lot of stuff before then, but I didn't feel it was safe to go out in public because I knew they would kill me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got protection that I was able to come out and start saying this stuff.
Right, and it is true that within Japan, you are a best-selling author. You've sold, how many books do you have in print, and how many units have you sold?
I published 6 books in Japan, 2 of them with Benjamin Fulford, then actually sold, I think, 40,000 copies of the 2 books, which is a good result for a first-timer in the Japanese market. Later, I published with other authors. I published books by myself. But guys, Benjamin Fulford didn't want to actually write facts. He came to Rome. He wanted me to evoke an entity in front of him. He wanted sensationalism. He wasn't a serious journalist as David Wilcock was claiming. These are 2 bullshitters of the worst kind.
I don't know. More than 30 books, and I don't know, more than maybe 1 million in all. I haven't kept track.
But that's so 30 titles is very substantial. You are fully bilingual. Nobody can challenge that because there's plenty of videos they can watch of you talking fluently in Japanese. I have seen endless iterations of every type of hate comment that somebody would lob at you. And the most frequent one is that they just can't...
somebody in the chat here is telling me they have my book with Princess Kaoru Nakamaru. Yes, I did a couple of books with her.
Can't wrap their head around the story. They think that it's too implausible.
I remember how this interview ended. It was pretty interesting.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
William Hughes Mulligan, Jr. I'm a member of the firm of Blakely, Platt & Schmidt, and yes, we filed the complaint on November 23rd, representing Neil Keenan, index number 11 Civ 8500.
All right. Thank you.
The complaint was eventually dismissed. It was actually abandoned after being dismissed almost by the judge.
Thank you very much. All right. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, great. So he definitely confirms that this is a civil complaint that was filed through his firm and that the whole story is true. This is absolutely astonishing, utterly...
Guys, if you want real information regarding this story, not the BS that was fed at the time, you can simply go on this website, which I'm going to post on the chat for those who are interested. So at least you can have an honest idea. I mean, you can go here. There is a couple of sites where you can go. Let me put it on top on the screen, actually, also. This is all the details of the court case that was, like I said, eventually dismissed and then abandoned by Neil Keenan himself. You can also check this article about it, which is here. And let's go back to this instead.
Translated in 1821, and Jesus quotes from this book in the New Testament, so he obviously thought it was pretty important. The key chapters are chapters 1 through 36, called the Book of the Watchers, and it says that this man, Enoch, was Noah's grandfather, and that he lived for 365 years, so he was some kind of extraterrestrial. Enoch acts as a messenger for what appear to be benevolent extraterrestrials who had threatened these people on Earth, the Watchers, with total destruction that became Noah's flood. But before the flood, before their civilization was wiped out again, because we're now talking about 12,000 years ago, the big Atlantean flood, they used Enoch as a messenger to...
Well, he, of course, mixed elements of truths with lies. Let me see with you instead what Harris talked about with that J guy.
Has been used by or people that I've made.
Here we are.
Similar circles. I never met David Wilcock, but when people who are criticizing some of my viewpoints of him when I'm having these discussions, I thought the best way would be to investigate, would be to bring on somebody that knew David personally. And we are very blessed today, beyond blessed, to have with us the former director and content creator of Gaia and producer of Cosmic Disclosure, Jay Widener. Jay Widener, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining me on the Rundown Live today on Ground Zero Plus. What a sad story, and I really am interested to see and have you tell your version of the life of David Wilcock, because he's a very interesting individual. He captivated millions of people. Like right now he's probably trending right up there with the Epstein files. Like he's on like literally every one of my feeds, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, the Reels. The algorithms are promoting the death of David Wilcock, and it's really interesting to me because you are also an expert in mind control, which I've been interviewing MK Ultra victims for the last month. So we have a lot of crossover here, and I'm really excited to talk to you on today's broadcast. And number one, first of all, I know you're a friend of David's, and I'm really sorry for your loss with David, first and foremost. I believe in redemption, and I believe people can change, and I believe in the best of people, and it's unfortunate when something like this happens. But welcome to the broadcast, Jay. Thank you for joining me today. All right, Jay, we got to unmute you. That's on me. I apologize. Welcome to the broadcast, Jay.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem, Jay. So let's start out. How did you meet David, or when did you first hear of David, and how did you get involved with him?
I used to listen to him on the Art Bell show way long time ago, and then I met him at a conference. I must have been around 2000. That's when we first met, and I just put out my Alchemical Kubrick article, and he was very complimentary to me, almost to an embarrassing place, and raving about that I'm a genius and Stanley Kubrick.
Who David Wilcock is? Who was David Wilcock to you? Like who was this individual, and what was it that really stuck out to you that set him above and beyond other people that you could have done shows with?
Well, first of all, incredibly charismatic and charming, and he wasn't bad looking, so he looked good on camera, which is always an important thing. But third, he just had so many great ideas and so many unusual views on alternative science and ancient cultures and spiritual things, and it was so wide-ranging. And then when he and I coupled together it became like a powerhouse because I brought, my 35 years of esoteric studies with me to him, and he knew that he was getting a really great thing here, and I'm really proud of it. And I hope, that I don't know if it's still on Gaia, but I hope that they bring it back because it was a great show. My feeling is that David was super quirky, fragile. I had to be very careful with him. I could hurt his feelings without knowing I hurt his feelings, right? I could see him pouting and say, what's wrong? After 15 minutes, finally, he'd tell me that I said this. Oh, my God, I did not mean to say that, right? And I did mean to say it like you think I said it. And, but, we got along and made a great show. And he just had such wide range of interests that we could literally just, if he had not quit Gaia in 2018, I guarantee it, he'd still be there. We would still have found a place for him. I'm not there anymore, haven't been there in 7 years, but I guarantee he would have been a continuous presence on the network and making, pretty good money there too. But when Corey Goode talked him into quitting Gaia in 2018, he wrote that ridiculous resignation letter, then he lost his marriage, he lost all of his income, and there he was living alone in a house in the mountains of Colorado, no friends, no money, and clearly by watching his weekly show, you can see the mental deterioration that he was going into and under. Now, is it MK Ultra? It could be, in my mind.
I think more than MK Ultra, which has not been, by the way, existing as such for many years, since the early 1970s. It was then substituted by other programs. But the thing is that the New Age milieu, the New Age cults, the cultish approach within that's the UFO disclosure milieu, these are to blame because they are the product of theosophy, of modern Satanism. They are the products of an approach to religion, this syncretic approach, which is completely anti-Christian and anti-God. And so it's a godless, really, a group of people that he was involved, and in the end, they were not capable of saving him, of being close to him, and so in a way, this is the sad result of the New Age cultish belief systems that we find in places like Contact in the Desert and other so-called disclosure, because disclosure should be seriously about disclosure, should be seriously about analyzing the UFO, now the UAP phenomena. It should be something about how we're gonna deal with an eventual full disclosure. It should be about serious topics. Instead, with these people, it becomes something else. And it's sad. It's really sad that in the end, this lack of God brings somebody to just take his own life. Now, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Please share it on your social networks of choice. And please support us, guys, because without your support, we can't keep on doing these shows. I have to dedicate myself. I'm not like, these people were making extreme amounts of money and at the same time managed to lose all that money. I am simply asking to purchase my books because I believe they are important and relevant and absolutely honest. Thank you for taking your time today to check my show out. And we will be, of course, together next Saturday, and sponsors permitting, we might occasionally also bring you a midweek show. Take care, guys. And have a great week.
Secret society, trying to keep it on.
Trust my intuition. In my mind, I can't see David with a gun. He doesn't like guns. People are dangerous. People that have guns are stupid. They got paranoid and got a gun. I can't see it in my mind. That's my problem with this whole thing. I can't see him putting the gun to his head. I can't. You know what? Yeah, maybe a fentanyl overdose or a sleeping pill overdose. I got that. I can see that happening. But it takes a certain kind of dude. I couldn't.
Well, first of all, I don't believe in suicide. It's not my core being. But you know, it's a very sad outcome. And the first thing that comes to my mind as an investigative journalist is drug abuse. Like, you know, I don't know, but when you get into circles like that, especially when it comes to people who want to expand their consciousness, a lot of them dive down and travel down a very dangerous road with just drugs in general. And it starts out with something basic like mushrooms or DMT because they're trying to expand their consciousness. And somebody says, well, how about this? Or then you end up on meth or something else. But he could have had a health deterioration. Like, I don't know him personally. I don't know if he had a drug addiction, but I see a lot of the similar patterns.
Yeah, okay, there's something I do want to address because I think you brought this up. There's a guy commenting on various radio podcasts and things on this whole thing, and I think it's the same guy. He seems like he really knows
stories, and the stories were they seem so exaggerated that they can't be true. And there's other people out there that tell